Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Video Game Reviews on the Gaming Source Network. I am the Gaming CPA and have the honor and privilege of reviewing a very special game, 100 Days, a winemaking simulator. How I would describe this game is a turn-based resource and business management simulator. Imagine taking the turn-based qualities of, say, Baldur's Gate 3, adding in the resource/business management of America's Market, and sprinkling a dash of Epistory Typing Chronicles animation, and you have yourself 100 Days. Now, if you know nothing about wine besides the overarching desire to consume large quantities of it, do not fret, as this game has a lovely tutorial as well as a beautiful narrative and storyline that lets you meet several NPCs with different backgrounds, stories, and ways they will influence your winemaking experience. Now let's move on to the gameplay. You start off by creating your winery name and label. As we all know, great wine is the one with the best looking label and the cheapest price. Once you've done that, you can start the campaign and your story begins. Unlike what you imagined, probably, you actually start in an office building where you learn the mechanics of dragging the cards up and placing them inside the box, waiting for the number of turns before the action is completed. Once you have worked in the mailroom, an orange exclamation point appears and requires you to click on it to see what it is. A letter! Who would have thought the mailroom would have those? Now we move on to our winery, and here the tutorial begins. But since you have me, we're going to go ahead and disable and throw those out the door, and I'll explain absolutely everything. First off, we need to weed our vineyard. While that's happening, you can click on your vineyard and see in the top left the name of your vineyard, and beneath that all the information that will help you decide what grapes are best grown here. Things to note is the altitude, pH levels, sand, clay, and loam percentage, as well as the sugar and acidity it has. Some wines are best made with different levels of sugar and acidity. In the bottom right corner, you can click to end your turn. Then we have to thin our grapes. Thin out the crop so that we get very high quality grapes. Next, we are going to dive into the warehouse. There are 3 buildings in the game, all with different options to upgrade. The warehouse has different storage options for the wine, as well as a shop option to increase customers. The winery has different equipment for making the wine, including barrels, presses, crushers, etc. You can rearrange the equipment in any of the buildings as you would like. All the buildings can be upgraded as well. Lastly, the tool shed, where you can buy vehicles and machines to help speed up the weeding and harvesting processes. There is a technology tree in the game where you can use the hard-earned cash from your lovely wine to unlock the ability to purchase better equipment for your 3 buildings, new grapes to plant, different yeast options for fermentation, or even increase the size of the field you place your cards on in the middle of your screen. Next, if you thought managing one vineyard was a lot of work, you can actually buy multiple vineyards and grow several different grapes at a time. Perhaps you are more of a Chardonnay person. Well, make sure to check the viability of the land first by clicking on the box next to the grape you would like to plant and see if the land would be a good option for your grapes or not. Green means the soil and location are good for your grapes. Red means your grapes will suffer in quality and the conditions are not ideal. Our last thing we get to do is harvest the actual grapes. Once we have harvested them, then we get to see the quality of the grapes and how many gallons we have harvested. This will go into our fiberglass storage tank. Next, we must crush the grapes. I believe this is the process of slowly removing the peel from the grapes themselves. Then, with wintertime, we must prepare for the following season. When you prune, you can choose to leave a very low number of buds. This will give you a high percentage of ripeness and high chance of quality grapes, as the fewer there are, the less competition for water and nutrients. Or if you would rather be the Walmart of wineries and produce mass quantity and poor quality, that is also an option. Once we finish squeezing the grapes out of their skins, gross, we then need to ferment them. This will bring the sweetness levels down, and we can also increase the tannin levels during this time as well. As you can see at the top of the screen, we are consistently losing money. That's because we don't have any wine we are selling as of yet, so we are dealing with operating expenses with no operating income. The bar to the right of the income is a notification section. This notification is warning me that we have no more tanks available for storing grapes, as we only own 1 tank and it is currently being used. Other useful notifications like there is a drought, you are going bankrupt fast, and the real estate market sucks are other things you may see in this section. Next, we need to press the grapes and squeeze the yummy liquid out of them that we call fermented grape juice. This process allows us to increase both the body of the wine as well as the tannin levels. Since I already know how much tannin and sweetness Barbera wine should be at, I'm going to leave the tannin at a 2 and keep the body at a 2. You can also check out the seasons looking at the nifty calendar. There are only 5 days per season and 20 days per year. How nice is that? You are not allowed to do yard work on the vineyard during rain, so we now get the opportunity to bottle our wine. This is a way for you to customize your bottle to be exactly what you want. You can make the bottle expensive or cheap. Understand that using cheap materials can sometimes negatively affect your wine with impurities. I chose a quality synthetic closure, Bordeaux shape, and dark color, followed by a double label. You can then name your bottle of wine and confirm the process each and every time you bottle new wine. Next comes the actual wine tasting. This is going to give your wine its rating, which then decides how much you get to sell it for. Woohoo, we got a 72. Not bad for our first wine. Thanks, tutorial. As you can see, the sweetness and tannin levels have stars. That is the ideal level of sweetness and tannin for the Barbera wine, or the Barbera grape. However, look at the note under the 72 out of 100 rating. This wine needs more body. This is a hint saying that we need to increase the body of this wine if we want a better rating. We can also open up our journal and see that the lighter and more greenish color, the closer we are to perfection, whereas the whitish hue means you are further away, so we are close on acidity, but we are very far away on the body. Lastly, we need to clean our equipment and, of course, sell the wine. Selling the wine is where the business management side of the game truly comes in. Here is a perfect example of getting to choose whether you sell your wine at a large discount but for a bigger payday, or do you stick to making high profit margins and only sell prices closer to your normal selling price. You can filter the order queue by total price, types of bottles, and discount. You can also see what is in the warehouse and filter that by the date it was made, what its ratings are, and the wine type. To start off, I'm going to sell both. This will give me a good chunk of income since I just started. Now I'm going to start filtering and start selling my bottles that are closest to my normal sales price and increasing my profit margin that way. You can only sell to 5 separate customers at a time. Each day brings in new orders and sometimes special orders. You can also request cleaning cards for equipment if they need to be clean and didn't automatically pop up. Sometimes this happens after a card disappears because you haven't played it yet. A special order will have special requests, with some examples being a specific vine variety, a certain number quality of the wine, whether it has been aged or not, a minimum or maximum acidity, sweetness, body, or tannin levels within the wine, etc. These orders will increase your fame if you complete them. You can have multiple special orders at a time, and some of them you can send away if you can't fulfill them or don't plan on fulfilling them anytime soon, but this will cost you fame. Then the process repeats itself, and you continue to sell wine while growing, crushing, fermenting, pressing, aging, and bottling your next 100,000 million bottles of the finest vino there ever was. Thank you so much for stopping by the Gaming Source Network. This has been the Gaming CPA's video review of 100 Days, a winemaking simulator on Google Stadia. Ciao.